All right, hello everyone. My name is Ariel Cohn. I'm a program coordinator at DCCCA. So in my role, I focus on suicide prevention, primarily in Southeast Kansas, because we know that the rate of suicide, especially the rate of youth suicide, is especially prevalent in the Southeast region compared to the rest of the state. So before we get into sources of strength, just a little plug for the other suicide prevention work that I do at DCCCA. We provide a handful of different suicide prevention trainings. So we're able to provide QPR, which is a 1-hour suicide intervention training. Pretty one-on-one, gives folks an action plan of asking the question about suicide, getting folks connected to help, all that good stuff. Then we also have a 1-hour CALM training, which stands for Conversations on Access to Lethal Means. So if we're worried about someone who's thinking about suicide, that teaches us how to have a conversation with them about storing firearms and medications in a safe way to keep them safe and to keep others safe. And then we also provide youth mental health first aid, which is a full-day training that goes into not just suicide prevention, but a whole host of mental health challenges and how to support young people, get them connected to that help, all that good stuff. So if you're interested in any of that, I do have flyers in the back, and then we also have funding to get folks trained as facilitators in all of those trainings as well. So if you're interested in that, got some flyers, you can connect with me. So we got some good stuff. So, Sources of Strength is a program that I would love to talk with you all about. Also, I'm sorry, I have a whole bunch of animations. I got a little carried away. So just prepared everyone for that. You go to the next slide. This one, Chrissy just did a great job of identifying all of the different things that DCCCA does. And again, I'm coming to you all from the Prevention Services team. So a little outline of where we're going. In the next half hour or so. You go to the next slide. You'll want to click it 4 times maybe. There you go. So we'll talk about the impact of suicide a little bit, just some light data. We'll talk about upstream prevention and what that is, just like Dr. Ferris touched on earlier today. We'll talk about what Sources of Strength is. We'll talk about making it happen, and then click one more time. We'll get to see it in action. So looking at some data, so this is national suicide data. So this is the percent of youth with the identified mental health indicator in the last 12 months. So you can see here about 40% of young people within the United States shared that they felt sad or hopeless. We have about 28% who said that they had poor mental health in the past 12 months. About 20% of young people considered suicide in the past 12 months. And then about 10% had attempted suicide in the last year as well. And then going to the next slide, so looking at this data in Kansas. So again, percent of youth with the mental health indicator in the last year. About 30% shared that they were sad or hopeless. About 15% considered suicide, and about 4% had made a suicide attempt in the last year. And if you go to the next slide, just so we can compare the two, so we can see that in Kansas, and then just a note, so the Kansas data is from KCTC, and that survey doesn't ask about the poor mental health, which is why we don't see it in that data. But just so you can get an idea comparing Kansas to the national rates overall, it does look like our youth rates for these mental health indicators are lower than the national averages. So if we move on to the next slide, we'll take a look at suicide deaths in young people, and this is, again, throughout the United States. Youth is identified as ages 10 to 24, and this is over a 20-year period, so from 2001 to 2021. You can see a pretty steady increase, right? In 2021, there were about 7,000 youth suicides in the United States. And then comparing that to data in Kansas, you can go to the next slide. So this is the rate per 100,000, ages 15 to 24. So you can see the red line is in the United States, the rate of youth suicide, again, from 2001 to 2020. And then in that gold color, that is the Kansas rate of suicide death. So you can see here, for the past 20 years, Kansas has had a higher rate of youth suicide death than in the country. And you can see, especially in the last 10, 15 years, we've sort of broadened that gap a little bit. So we're seeing an even greater increase in suicide death among young people. So just to sort of set the stage, and you all, I'm sure, have experience working with young people. You understand the prevalence of suicide and the need for suicide prevention. Go to the next slide and then click once. So these are all protective factors of suicide, right? These are all significantly associated with lower prevalence of all of those mental health indicators that we saw. So that sadness or hopelessness, poor mental health, suicidal thoughts, and suicide attempts. Then you can, of course, see school connectedness on there, which is one that you all play that huge role in. And even with that like regular physical activity, getting 8 or more hours of sleep, Sources of Strength helps young people recognize all of these protective factors in their lives. Next slide. So what is upstream prevention? There's a story in the prevention field that we like to tell to sort of help illustrate what upstream prevention is. This may be a new story for folks, this may be one that you've heard before. But it's a story about a woman who lives in a community situated along a river that spills into a waterfall. The woman gets up every morning to take a walk along the river. One day she hears a shout and she realizes that someone has fallen into the water, is caught up in the current, and is in danger of going over the falls. So the woman springs into action. She dives into the water, scoops the person up, and pulls them to shore. She performs CPR and a life is saved. The community is so thankful that this woman happened to be in the right place at the right time. The next day on her daily walk, she hears another shout. Another person has fallen into the water, is caught up in the current, and is in danger of going over the falls. So she jumps in, pulls him to safety, and as she gets to shore, she hears another shout. So at this point, the community organizes to respond as they realize that there are many people falling into the river. So they build watchtowers, they hire lifeguards, they train everyone in CPR, and while this does help, these efforts still cannot keep everyone from going over the falls. So one day, the woman starts walking upstream. Everyone in the community is shouting at her, "Where are you going? This is a crisis. We need all hands on deck." And she responds, "Of course. That's why I'm headed upstream to see if I can help people keep them from falling in the water in the first place." So that's really what that upstream prevention is. It's moving upstream to help people from falling into that river, into the crisis in the first place, and to build resiliency so folks can get back out of that water, get out of those challenges while the river is still tranquil. So you can see that upstream prevention, so ideally helping folks before they go through those tough times, giving them the skills to prevent them from falling in the river, right? Then we have that intervention, so young people are going through tough times, they deal with mental health challenges, those traumas that Dr. Ferris talked about, and that intervention is still needed, right? That's still important. If someone falls into the river, we still need those folks to pull them out. But ideally, we can prevent them from going over the falls, which is that crisis situation, right? Those suicide attempts, those suicide deaths. And then, of course, in the event of a suicide death, providing that post-mention support to a community can also act as prevention as well. This will go to the next slide. So what is Sources of Strength? Here's their mission. It's to provide the highest quality, evidence-based prevention for suicide, violence, bullying, and substance misuse by training, supporting, and empowering both peer leaders and caring adults to impact their school, college, university, or community through the power of promoting youth-adult connectedness and spreading hope, help, and strength. Thank you. So Sources of Strength focuses on empowering a well world and finding ways to work towards wellness and well-being. And when we work towards wellness for our communities and for our schools, the outcome is that prevention. So, do I have sound capabilities by chance?
We'll try. Is this like an embedded
Yes.
video?
Yes.
Doesn't look like it wants to play.
Okay, that is okay. We can skip that then. Just a quick video that shows the peer leader mission statement. So that's the statement that all of the youth who are engaged in Sources of Strength sort of help lead their work. So it focuses on that hope, help, and strength that was in the Sources of Strength mission statement. It talks about being a connector to help, which I'll touch on a little bit later. Focusing on all of the protective factors, which we'll also get to in a moment when we look at the Sources of Strength wheel. And it also talks about veering away from that sad shock trauma. So instead of using traumatic stories or fear tactics to try to keep kids from attempting suicide or using those sad stories, we can actually focus on those positive protective factors that youth have in their life and how that acts as protective factors and how that can help reduce suicidal thoughts and behaviors. If you go to the next slide. All right, so I'm wondering, what stressors do you and your colleagues deal with?
Not able to assist the family immediately with what they need.
Yeah, not being able to assist them.
Not enough resources.
Lack of resources.
Yeah, lack of resources. What else?
Maybe, I was gonna say, maybe clients knowing boundaries.
Yeah. So let's hear from one more person.
Possible burnout.
Yeah, burnout for sure. So what are some ways that help you get through those tough times when you're feeling burnt out, when you feel like you don't have that support from those resources? What are some things that you can do to help you out?
Cry.
Yeah, no, but crying, you're exactly right. Crying can be an impactful way to process our emotions for sure. Yeah, peer support, turning to people who go through similar things, right? They know what it's like, venting to them, right? Just talking to someone who maybe gets it. Yeah. So when we think about these stressors that we're experiencing, we can think about it like a tree. We can think of ourselves sort of as that tree. When a tree experiences wind, it grows roots deeper into the ground and becomes stronger. So if a tree never experiences wind, it won't be able to withstand rain or floods or other storms, right? And trees need some of that resistance to develop resilience to be able to stand strong for forever, right? And so we are built that same way. Some stress can be helpful, right? It helps make us stronger. But stress can also become overwhelming, right? So thinking about things that help us get through those tough times are exactly what we need, right? So crying, right? Being able to express our emotions, right? And having a safe way to do that. Turning to our peers, to people who get it, who we feel safe talking to, are certainly all great examples of that. So if you go to the next slide, and then one more, there you go. So this is the sources of strength wheel. So these are the 8 protective factors that they've identified in lives. So we have family support, positive friends, mentors, healthy activities, generosity, spirituality, and physical health. And this is actually how the team at Sources of Strength came up with the wheel. They asked young people these same questions, right? What are some tough times that you go through, and what helps you get through those tough times? And all of their answers fell into one of these 8 categories. And so now this wheel is really the message and theme of Sources of Strength. And all of these pieces that you see are protective factors for young people. And they're things that they can identify with. They're things that make sense to them, and they can identify them as a way to protect themselves from suicide. The next slide, please. And as noted in the Sources of Strength mission statement, the impact reaches beyond suicide prevention. Protective factors can also help someone be resilient in the face of many stressors. It has been proven to be effective in addressing these risk factors like violence, substance abuse, mental illness, and suicide. So we know it's not just impacting suicide, but these protective factors can help protect against these other risk factors as well. Next slide, please. And a recent study that was funded by the CDC found that Sources of Strength reduced suicide attempts by 29% among high school students. The study revealed that it works across diverse demographics, empowers young people to be leaders, and acts for support for students with trauma. And so I would encourage you all to take a few moments to read the full study to get a deeper understanding of what went into it and what the findings were. But it's pretty cool to see, and this just came out in February, so it's new data. that schools that implemented sources of strength found that those suicide attempts reduced by 29%. All right, go to the next one. So sources of strength uses something called the social network theory to help spread hope and positive behaviors. And social network theory is the process of contagion. So it dives into how something can spread throughout a community. And this theory explains just like things like COVID or the flu, hope and positive behaviors can actually be contagious. So when we implement sources of strength into our schools, we can start that contagion of hope and positive behaviors. Thank you. So Sources of Strength uses these 3 practices to lead its work. So first, we heard about that upstream story before. Sources of Strength is an upstream approach. It teaches students how to cope with the stressors of life, how to practice resiliency in the face of adversity, and ideally, this will help prevent students from experiencing those mental health crises like suicidal thoughts and behaviors. You also know that Sources of Strength is evidence-based. It's on the National Registry of Evidence-Based Programs and Practices through SAMHSA, which is considered that gold standard for evidence-based programs. And their research partners include SAMHSA, CDC, National Institute on Mental Health. And then we also know that Sources of Strength is student-led. So students who participate in Sources, also called peer leaders, learn the content of Sources of Strength and then spread the message with the rest of their peers. They do this through something called campaigns, which we will get into shortly. We know that kids and students are more likely to listen to other kids, and we know that kids who are struggling are more likely to turn to their friends rather than adults when they're looking for help. So Sources of Strength teaches those peer leaders, those students engaged in the content, how to help themselves or help their friends. And it emphasizes that it is not on the student alone to save their friends, but rather to be that connector to help. So to help them find that support system, to connect them to that trusted adult, to connect them to the right person who can help them. Next slide. So this is sort of the model of how Sources of Strength works. So first we build that community of strength. So we do that by training school staff to be adult advisors. So they'll learn the importance of their role in students' lives, what resources are available, and how to help their students. And then we'll get a group of peer leaders trained in Sources of Strength. They'll learn about that wheel that we saw, how to be those connectors to help, and how to spread that message of hope, help, and strength with the rest of the school. And they do this through those campaigns. These campaigns could be bulletin boards, after-school activities, setting up a table during lunch. It could be a spirit week. So being after a football game, literally whatever the students come up with, that however they want to spread the message, right? These campaigns create that positive culture change. They typically last about 2 to 6 weeks, and everyone in the school is encouraged to participate. So it's not just something for the kids who are involved in Sources of Strength, but it's meant to be a school-wide activity. Next one. So here's sort of the implementation process. So the first step is pre-training. So we'll need to get buy-in from school staff, so get folks to attend the training, to get trained as an adult advisor, to get trained sort of in that like trusted, safe adult. And there will also be buy-in from students to participate as peer leaders. And that's something that I'm able to support fully, right? I'm able to help move that process along. Then comes the training piece. So DECA staff will come to your school, get your staff and your students trained. And then after students are trained, it's up to them to start putting on those campaigns. So just like clubs have monthly meetings, they'll use those meetings to help plan and put on those campaigns. And then of course, it's important to celebrate the successes and acknowledge the hard work that goes into putting on these campaigns. So we want to give them space to celebrate that as well. And then rinse and repeat, right? So as the next school year is coming up, we want to do that recruitment to keep folks engaged in it. We'll do another annual training for both adults and students. Students put on the campaigns and the cycle continues. So here's what it will look like for you on the next slide. This one, a whole bunch of animations. Yeah, we'll just let them all populate first. Okay, there's 2 more. Okay, perfect. Sweet. So first we'll need to get approval from administration, of course, make sure that everyone is on board. That is also something that I'm able to assist with, whether that is holding meetings, providing presentations like this so folks get a better understanding, whatever that may look like, getting buy-in from the administration to be able to put on this curriculum to get this plan going. Then this piece is optional. Identify staff to attend a 4-day training of trainers. We have some funding available to send folks to a 4-day training for sources of strength to help folks become facilitators. These trainings are a ton of fun. They call it a training, and 4 days sounds like an awful lot, but it is very heavily focused in games and play, and they're usually in fun and cool places. I went to one in Oregon. There was one in North Carolina. There's one coming up in Canada, so like very cool places, and you get to have a lot of fun while you're there. But this training helps get staff in the school trained to facilitate those yearly trainings, and they'll just get a much deeper knowledge and understanding, like the inner workings and the science behind sources of strength. So the next piece of it is identify staff to be adult advisors. Typically, it's just 1 or 2 staff who will act as those like advisors or sponsors of the group to make sure the groups are meeting and to make sure whatever the students need, supporting that work. And then the other staff who go through this training will learn how to be those trusted adults and how to support students. Even if staff aren't interested in being involved in sources of strength, this training is a really great opportunity for them to learn about suicide prevention and just sort of gives them that like basic knowledge on how to support a student if they're worried about them. And again, these trainings are very heavily focused on games and play and conversation. They're pretty good trainings. Then we want to identify students to be peer leaders. Here, we can do this through a sign-up sheet, or we can have staff nominate students who they think might benefit from the program or who might do really well in the program. And then it can also be blended or combined with other groups that already exist, like Y-Link. It pairs really, really well with Y-Link, STUCO, 4-H. I've seen it also combined with like FFA, whatever group might want to take sources and implement it. We can certainly do that instead of creating another group, because we know kids can be stretched pretty thin trying to engage in all the different clubs and activities. And so with Y-Link in particular, they're already doing mental health promotion, right? So sources of strength just sort of gives them that like evidence-based content that they can base their activities and campaigns off of. So those two will work really well together as well. Then, of course, hosting those adult advisor trainings and peer leader trainings. Each one is about 3 hours. We can do them on your schedule, whatever that looks like for you and your school. And then that ongoing support from DECA, that's mostly me, so providing that support, whether that's with trainings or needing help with campaigns or needing help with getting students to plan those campaigns if students are feeling stuck, which we'll get into as well. Sources has some great resources for that. But you're not just sort of left alone to figure it out. We are here to support you and help you throughout the school year. So, next page. So here's sort of what it looks like. First, peer leaders come up with a campaign. Again, this campaign can be literally anything under the sun. Peer leaders will typically choose like one piece of the wheel to focus on, like generosity, positive friends, mentors, and then plan their campaign around spreading that message and educating their peers on that. Then they put on the campaign. We recommend a campaign lasting about 2 to 6 weeks to ensure that all students in the school have a chance to engage with it. And then after that campaign, they will celebrate their success for all the hard work that they did. We do recommend that peer leaders aim to put on about 1 campaign per semester. But we've seen groups who have a lot of energy and they do like 2 or 3 campaigns a semester, but it is up to each sources of strength group to determine their schedule, what they have capacity for. Then each campaign is based on this model to ensure that they're effective. So first, it should be something that's engaging, so something that students want to participate in. Then it should be something interactive. So we'll see some examples of campaigns later. And there's always some sort of interactive piece in the campaign so students are able to fully participate and engage with it. And then the campaign also will show students how to apply the sources of strength wheel to their own life by helping them discover what their strengths are. All right, now the fun part, the cost breakdown. This one is also full of animations. So this is generally how much it will cost. If you want to click till you get to the $7,000 piece. There you go. So this is the fee basically to get a school onboarded with sources of strength. You have the licensing fee, the cost to bring trainers in. We typically have to fly them in. The field guide, which is like a little booklet that all of the adult advisors get. Peer leader guide, so that the peer leaders have something to hold on to. Posters, so you can spread the message throughout the school. Some swag, obviously those stickers and pins, and then some campaign materials as well. So that will run us about $7,000. Then if you want to click 5 more times, I think. So this is the optional piece, but that TOT, training of trainer registration, and then the flights and the hotel and everything that comes with sending someone to a facilitator training for sources will be about $4,500 per person. So if you click one more time, doing the math, that brings us to about $11,000. Sounds pretty steep. I don't know, does anyone have an extra $11,000 in their budget? Yes, I didn't think so. So one more time. Due to our grant funding, it's all free, yay! So you can get $11,000, even more if you send more folks to that registration or to that training of trainers. But all of this is covered by grant funding, so DECA is able to support all of you in getting all of these materials, these trainings, covering all the fees, all that good stuff through our grant funding through KDAD. So super good news. I love being able to say that you don't have to find any room in the budget for these types of resources.
I'll also interject, Ariel, because I know grant funding is, precarious right now. So this is also written into Telehealth Rocks grant funding. So if there was ever a situation where, KDAD's, if there's grant funding taken away or anything like that, which I don't think that's on the horizon, I haven't heard anything, but it is written into the CanAware grant funding for Telehealth Rocks. So there is multiple sources of funding for sources of strength right now. So if it is something you guys are interested in, the funds are not something you guys should be worried about.
So yes, thank you. So moving on, here are just some quotes from schools in Kansas who have implemented sources of strength. So this first one, sources of strength has a positive impact on the entire student body and creates a positive mentality for students and staff. The second one says that we did a campaign where students made a giant sun and had their peers write positive messages on it to make the raise. It stayed up for the entire year because the entire school loved seeing it every day. And that bottom one says, I love sources of strength because it teaches prevention rather than reactivity after something happens. These quotes, I think, do a really nice job of showing the impact of sources of strength throughout the school's culture. It reaches beyond the peer leaders who are part of it. It actually touches the entire student body and can also impact the staff. So let's see it in action. Go to the next page. So here are 2 examples of campaigns that schools in Kansas have put on. So this first one, the What Helps Me, that's actually a templated campaign. So Sources of Strength has some campaigns that are already sort of all bundled up. All you have to do is order the materials, which again are $15, $20. They're pretty cheap. And then the peer leaders just bring it into the school and deliver it out to their peers, right? So this one says, what helps me with anger, anxiety, or sadness? And then students get a chance to write in what that is. And then this group chose to display all of those on a bulletin board that was right at the entrance of the school, so everyone can see what are those coping skills and those protective factors that everyone in the school has and what they use. Then this giant tree here, this one is a gratitude tree that's pretty popular for sources of strength groups, especially around like fall, Thanksgiving. So the sources of strength group made this giant tree and all these leaves. Then over the lunch hour for a couple of days, peer leaders handed out these leaves and encouraged their peers to write down one thing that they're grateful for, and then they got to add it to the tree. I really like this campaign because it allows anyone in the school to participate. And it's really cool to see the visual of how many leaves are on the tree and how many things this school has to be grateful for, right? All of those protective factors that they have. And you can see in the close-up picture, they wrote things like, I'm grateful for life, my family, music, my friends, family, food, right? It can be as big or small as they want, right? Just something that they're grateful for. And then we've got some more examples. So this giant sources of strength wheel was another one. So peer leaders encouraged their classmates to pick 1 or 2 strengths that they felt strong in and add it to the wheel. And then they also provided, you can see on the table, they provided note cards for students to write thank you notes to their positive friends or mentors in their life. And then this sort of mommy one, this one might be one of my favorite campaigns ever. So this group did a door decorating competition for their advisory class. And it was also, as you can tell, around Halloween. So the theme was sources of strength and Halloween. So they really challenged their advisory groups with this. And so this class in particular created a giant mummy with its arms reaching out saying help is within reach. And then they printed out pictures of all of the adults in the school to show the students who they can go to and who students see as mentors. I think it's super cool because one, students then get a chance to see who the adults in their lives are, who are resources in the school that they can turn to, and then how special for all of the school staff to see their face up there, that the students see them as mentors, as trusted adults, as folks that they can turn to. So that is certainly one of my favorite ones that I've seen. And again, these are all from schools in Kansas. So students in Kansas are doing this cool work. And if you go to the next slide, just some more examples of templated campaigns. So this first one is the I Am Stronger campaign. So this is something you can, again, order online from sources for pretty cheap. And these are little cards. So it asks students to fill out 2 pieces of the wheel that they feel strong in, and then 1 piece of the wheel that they want to grow in. And I really love that idea of thinking about what piece of the wheel you want to grow in, because these protective factors are always changing, right? One week, I may feel like I have a really strong connection with my positive friends, right? And then maybe a few weeks later, something happens, right? And all of a sudden, I feel like I've lost that positive friends. So what is another piece of the wheel that I feel strong in, right? What's something I want to work on, right? Maybe I want to work on finding a healthy activity to engage in. Maybe I want to work on generosity, right? And so giving students a chance to see what they do have, and also a piece where they can grow and where they can work on. And then this next one is like a little gratitude journal. So practicing gratitude is part of the spirituality piece of the wheel. And I like this one. Peer leaders explain the importance of practicing gratitude, and then encourage students to write down 1 thing every day for 21 days that they're thankful for. And that's something that students can then take home, they can do on their own time, and sort of have that more personal connection with the wheel. So if we go to the next one, I'll hand out these at the end of my presentation. So I got a little templated campaign for you all to engage in. It's a little thank you note. It says, thank you for being a source of strength in my life. So I'd encourage you all to take a moment, whether that's over lunch or at the end of the day, to fill out that thank you note. Think about someone who's a strength in your life. So that could be a family member, it could be a friend, a mentor, anyone in your life that brings you strength. I encourage you to write them a little thank you note and then give it to them next time you see them. It's a powerful campaign, not just for you to identify that you have that strength, you have that connection with someone, but also imagine how good it feels to get that thank you note, to know that you're a strength in someone's life as well. So again, I will hand those out at the end. And then I've just got a quick little closing for you all, another story, of course. So this is a story about the Brooklyn Bridge. At the time of its construction, the Brooklyn Bridge was designed to be one of the largest and more iconic suspension bridges in the world. Enormous sums of money and effort went into this design and the construction of the bridge. And then about 3 years into the construction, residents of Manhattan and Brooklyn began to complain that they saw all this construction and all this traffic, but they didn't see a bridge. So as these grumblings grew louder and more frequent, the architect was forced to call a town hall meeting to try to save his job. So he explained that the reason you don't have a bridge is because we have spent all this time building below the water line, and it is only a result of this work that the bridge will stand the test of time. So he went on to explain that he and his team have pioneered innovative and revolutionary techniques to build anchor points into the riverbed. And so often in this prevention work, we can look around and ask ourselves, where's the bridge, right? We wonder if the work that we do has any impact, if we're making a difference, if we're building something that will last. And so working with youth really is that idea of building below the waterline. Working in education, mental health, public health, is building below that waterline. It can be difficult, even frustrating, and might leave us wondering where our bridge is, but all of this work is foundational, right? And it is only as a result of this foundational work that we can help build communities, schools, cultures, and young people that can stand the test of time and empower that well world. So if you'll just go to the last slide, that is all that I have for you. If you all have any questions, I will stick around for a bit. My email is up there. And then again, I encourage you all to take a look at the study on sources of strength that came out in February. But yeah, thank you all for listening.